In this video, I'd like to introduce you to our new EasyWeed macro for CorelDRAW. Now, EasyWeed will work in CorelDRAW X5 and CorelDRAW X6 in both the 32-bit and 64-bit editions of CorelDRAW X6. And it's a nice little utility that enables us to work with Rhinestone fonts in a way that previously was not available to us if we're just using CorelDRAW or really any Rhinestone software for that matter. And what EasyWeed does is it allows us to prepare a Rhinestone font for the purpose of cutting out individual letters to create a Rhinestone Alphabet template. So if a customer comes in and says, you know what, I need my business name, or I need my last name on a football jersey, or whatever the case might be, rather than cutting a custom template for that one-off shirt, or that, if they want 6 shirts, rather than cutting a one-off template for a small quantity of shirts, we have these alphabet templates. So somebody comes in and says, hey, I need Peterson put on the back of my jersey. Well, we can very easily do that with a Rhinestone Alphabet template. Now, the challenge that we have, however, is first of all, creating these little weed boxes around all of these letters and having the know-how to do that manually in any Rhinestone software, let alone CorelDRAW, is a very time-consuming, tedious process. And so what a lot of us will do is we'll go out and purchase a pre-cut template that has all these weed boxes already cut out for us, ready to go. Or at the very least, we'll go out and look for a vendor who has a font with these weed boxes already applied for us. Well, if we buy a pre-cut template, sometimes they can be kind of costly compared to cutting our template ourselves, especially if we have that capability to cut a template ourselves. We probably might as well go ahead and do that. And the other thing you'll find is if you're buying a pre-cut template, you're going to be limited on the available fonts that are available in a pre-cut template. It's not like there may be 100 Rhinestone fonts out there, but only 10 of them or 20 of them that are available in a pre-cut alphabet template. So you have that limitation. And you'll also find is in regards to a design file, there's not a lot of vendors out there offering Rhinestone fonts with the weed boxes already set up for us, because of the tedious process. Or if we were to buy a font with these weed boxes already applied for us, they tend to be a lot more expensive than just a typical true type Rhinestone font. So at any rate, we created this EasyWeed because we wanted to automate the process. I sat down one day, I did a font, and it's like, you know what, this process of creating these weed boxes around every single letter, that's a nightmare. And it's a nightmare for me as an experienced CorelDRAW user because it's a very tedious, time-consuming process. And certainly it would be a nightmare for someone who maybe doesn't have all the CorelDRAW skills. But even if you did, if you wanted to cut out 5 different Rhinestone font templates, it's going to take a little bit of time to create all these weed boxes to do it right. So at any rate, this is where EasyWeed comes into play. It does all the work for us. So let me show you some of the neat features. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to just go ahead and type out our alphabet. Simple enough, right? And then once we have our alphabet, we're going to paste our alphabet, and we're going to go ahead and type out our numbers. Okay, so now we have 2 copies of our alphabet in uppercase and our numbers. Now I'm going to go ahead and select that second grouping of lettering and right-click here in CorelDRAW, come to Change Case Lowercase. So now I have uppercase, lowercase, and my numbers. Now the next thing I want to do, I'm going to move this up a little bit, is come over here to my paragraph formatting Docker. Now if you're not familiar with this particular Docker, under the text drop-down, there it is, paragraph formatting. We're going to come in here to our character spacing and just type in 300%. All right, so now that we've done all this work, we can now save this as a new template. So I'm going to call it Rhinestone, let's just call it Rhinestone Alphabet Template. Okay, and we'll hit save. And we'll go ahead and click OK to create that template. So now we can pull up that file as a template file, and we can just change our font. So let's change our font to one of our fonts. Let's start there. So you can see here, there's our font, right? If we zoom in kind of tight here, you can see some challenges that we have. And this is typical of a lot of Rhinestone fonts. The circle itself isn't a perfect circle. Now, for the purpose of creating a template, do we need a perfect circle? Well, it would be nice to have a perfect circle. These would probably be okay. But we want perfect circles, ideally. And the other challenges we have is when we type out this lettering using the TrueType Rhinestone font, we have no idea how big that circle is. We know how big we want it to be. We don't know how big it is. And it's a very convoluted process to get these circles the size we need them. It's not an easy process, no matter what Rhinestone software we're using. So what we've done is we've kind of taken the guesswork out of it and just say, look, I just want to be able to select a font, right? I want to enter in a target stone size. Let's say I want to create this in SS6 stones. So I'm going to specify 2.6 millimeters and hit process my font. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so we can see this happen. So when I hit process font, that's it. The software does the work for us. It analyzes it, resizes it. The spacing between the stones stays exactly the same as it was. But now when I click, you can see I have a perfect 2.6. If I switch over to millimeters, you can see it's a perfect 2.6 millimeter stone, which is great because that's what we needed. So that's the first thing that it does that I think is pretty exciting. We can just type out our TrueType Rhinestone font. We can define our target stone size and go ahead and process it, and the software makes the necessary calculations. Now we're going to combine our letters back together again because right now every dot in the letter, in each individual letter, is its own separate object. So we're just going to quickly go through that. And what I usually do is I usually process A through O, I'm sorry, and then I process P through Z. Because if we were to select the entire alphabet, it's going to analyze all those stones, because really what it's doing is it's analyzing all these stones of all the letters and combining them back together. So in this 30, what that is 30 millimeters. And basically what it's saying is anything that's within 30 millimeters of one another, combine it into one. If it's more than 30 millimeters apart, don't combine it. And so that's essentially what's happening. And that's why we have all this big spacing between each letter, because it's more than 30 millimeters. So then, therefore, it won't get selected together. So we just have our numbers here to finish. Now, once we've done all this combining, we're just going to select everything by hitting Control A. I always like to look down here at the bottom of CorelDRAW. You see where it says 62 objects. All right. So we know that there's 26 letters in an alphabet. We have uppercase, lowercase. That's 52, plus the 10 numbers here. So that's 62. So that's where we get those numbers. So now we have all of our uppercase, lowercase, and numbers selected. And now we need to add the weed. So that's what this create the weed function does. Our default is 2 millimeters. Shouldn't have to change that, but go ahead and hit create the weed. And the software goes to work. And it will create the weed. Now it has to analyze every single letter, every single number in the template. So it does take a few seconds. Maybe might even take as much as a minute, maybe 2 minutes. You're watching it in real time here. But once it's done, now all these weed boxes are applied for. So you see how nice and easy that is? And so now we can create any word that we want, line everything up just perfect. So we could have stopped there, but of course we know what the next step is, right? What's the next step? Well, the next step in this process is we got to create a cut sheet. And so that's where the prep for cut functions come into play. We can define the template material that we're working with. We'll go ahead and define it as 14 inches for this template material. Now the template height, most of us are going to be cutting off a roll. And so we can just leave that blank if we want to, and I'm going to for this example. Now, if you were working with a specific sheet or maybe a piece of scrap or whatever the case is, you could enter a height for the template as well. So our offset margin is 0.5, horizontal spacing is 0.125, as is the vertical. Again, you could change that to 0 if you wanted all your letters to butt up against one another. And then we're just going to click the Create the Cut Layout. And again, the software goes to work for us. Now, there is a small bug here. I'm sorry, I haven't quite figured out why. It frustrates me. I've been working on it for quite some time, and I don't know why, but there is a small bug here where this little blue box shouldn't be offset like this. So it's a minor annoyance, but at any rate, we'll get to the bottom of it, I'm sure. But you can see what it's done here. It's taken all those letters and ganged them up on a sheet for us. So now we're able to select all those letters. We could export it. Now, my cut software, I can just copy and paste right from CorelDRAW into my cut software. Or you could export this as an EPS file, whatever trips your trigger, ready to go. And it definitely is a huge, huge time saver when you're creating these alphabet templates. So I hope you're as excited about EasyWeed as I am. We do have some additional miscellaneous features that you'll probably never use, but you know what? I just wanted to make it complicated, so I added a few of these extra functions. We'll talk about those in future videos to show you what the miscellaneous options do. But that's essentially how we can create our custom ready to go Rhinestone Alphabet template. We can cut these out, and now when somebody comes in, they need a name on their garment, boom, we can produce that very, very quickly. Thanks for watching.